You walk into a room full of people, you deliver a speech, a keynote, something that's in your source of genius. You walk out. What's the energy that you want to bring into the room, and what do you want them to say about you?
I would just want them to believe that I showed up authentically and spoke as myself and it wasn't some, canned pitch. And I would want them to think about their impact on the rest of the world and show up more present. But I think, if someone described me as being authentic, that would be the best compliment.
Welcome, Third Rock listeners, to the Branding Laboratory. I'm your host, Deevo, Chief Experience Officer for the brand Storyteller and the Fusion Creative Brands. And each week, I have the privilege of speaking with extraordinary leaders and entrepreneurs who are reshaping the way industries work. These conversations go way beyond the surface to explore the core philosophies, the lessons, and the challenges that define the brands that we admire today. And one of the greatest rewards of this podcast is the opportunity to share the insights of some of the brightest minds in business, people who are passionate about pushing boundaries and redefining what's possible. And as I always say, the stories we tell are the brands we build. And this show is a testament to the power of that concept. Let's dive in. Today's guest is one of those dudes. Originally, I thought we were here to talk about nutrition and supplements and science and diet, which I'm sure we will. But actually, I feel like we're going to take this a little bit more existential after my first conversation with him. Maybe talk about a little bit of pain, a little bit of pressure, maybe even some fatherhood, resilience, and something I've really been pressing into lately on the last few shows. It's an inconvenient truth. I'm finding that a lot of founders don't understand that their business will never outgrow them. And we're going to break that down and what that means. So, Scott Hogan, he's the founder of the SaltWrap Company. He's also an author. Everyone's an author, man. I got to pull up my game. Is everybody that comes on the show is an author, and they're like, "Dude, what have you written?" And I'm like, because I'm smaller than you. Sorry. Anyway, he built a book, Built from Broken. He's a husband, he's a father, and he has someone who's lived a story that I think a lot of founders quietly hope nobody really asks them about. He was laid off before his son was born, I think like 2 or 3 days before, if I recall from the last conversation. He had a wife on bed rest. He already had another kid at home that he was already sort of nurturing and taking care of. And instead of collapsing, which is the story of all great founders and leaders, or numbing out or getting on whatever things he could do to sort of like not face the problem, he decided to build instead. And maybe build from necessity, maybe build from responsibility, maybe build from pain, but nonetheless, he's built something now. And take a look at the company that he's established is pretty impressive. So anyway, so what he's about to realize is the Branding Lab podcast is not about testing products, it's about testing people. So Scott, welcome to the lab.
It's a great intro. Thank you.
What was your upbringing about in just a few words? You as a child. I want to go before you run in the company, kind of back as a kid. What were some of the things that really shaped you and your point of view and your philosophies and those sorts of things as a child growing up?
There's probably 2 points worth mentioning. One is I was a multi-sport athlete as a kid, constantly injured, not because I was a daredevil, just very fragile boy. For whatever reason, always breaking down. And that continued through college. And that kind of was the first seed planted for Salt Rap. But going back, as far as my upbringing, my mom she was ahead of the game. I think we talked about this a little bit. She was doing like bone broth popsicles, in the 90s before it was cool and just very natural medicine focused. She would create these Epsom salt bandages and wrap them around ankles and knees or whatever I'd busted up playing baseball. And it was a kind of a natural therapeutic approach to help with inflammation and pain, but it wasn't putting lidocaine on it or giving me NSAIDs or something that's not healthy. So years later, looking back, I realized like that's a great metaphor for what I want to do with Salt Wrap, like find natural ways to help people that also improve longevity. And it's not like shooting yourself in the foot, as is the case with cortisone injections or sometimes surgery, NSAIDs. So those are kind of two early seeds planted that helped form Salt Wrap.
If someone had to write your story, and your story was sort of about the through line of who you are then versus who you are now, what would your back cover of your book say?
The word that came to mind is integration. I don't know if this is the back cover of the book, but we talked about this a little bit. Sometimes it feels like these things are conflicting, whether, family, career goals. I'm trying to find a way to integrate things these days rather than see them as like diametrically opposed. That's what I would hope the back cover would say is that I found a way to integrate these things, like kind of have it all in terms of the physical health, mental, spiritual health, the family, our relationship health. Yeah, that's what I would hope the back cover would focus on.
That's interesting that you say that because and science is now really starting to reveal this. And I think for a while we were sort of in this model of separation in church and state and science and religion and all those things and all those spirituality. They've sort of always been kept in their own silos, especially here in the Western world. Well, primarily here in the Western world, right? But I think now science is really starting to reveal, and you're starting to see this. Johns Hopkins is doing all sort of dedicated research on opiates and mushrooms and psilocybins and like all this interconnectivity. You call it integration, I call it interconnectivity. But science is really starting to show that literally everything on this planet, from humanity to the animals to the plants to the flora to the fauna to the probiotic tiniest elements on the planet, everything is in some sort of integrated symbiosis. We all work together, ripple effect, cause effect, yada yada yada. And I'm curious, when you say the word, I see you nodding your head, so I know you agree. When you say the word integration, as it pertains to you as a human, as it pertains to you as a father, as it pertains to you as a CEO and a boss of people. You're leading people in a lot of different trajectories and categories. So you have an impact on people's lives, your children, your wife, your employees, the peers that you sit around, the podcasts that you show up on, the education, the thought leadership that you drop, yada, yada, yada. When you say the word integration, how does that holistic perspective embody what you bring to the table as a leader, as a father, as a CEO?
I think one of the things you learn early as a dad is that whatever energy you bring into the house, like that kind of permeates, your kids absorb that, and that's a big responsibility. And something I learned early on working with a coach was, kind of my deficits or my opportunities as a leader and how that shows up in the company. Like I remember a coach asked me about something I was struggling with. Like, well, how does that show up in your company? I'm like, well, what do you mean? And so we started putting it together. You can't really hide things in the fog,
Mm,
and when you're a leader, when you own a business, you're working with people, if you're not integrated, you're unbalanced, your energy's not right, it's going to show up. If you're thinking chaotically, it's going to show up in the business. And that's where we talked about, my coach now, he says self-leadership precedes, team leadership. Um, I think that has to come first.
yeah.
So if you're not balanced in that way, if you're not showing up integrated in your most powerful self, whatever that means, that word's kind of gotten mutated, but it's going to show up in the business.
Hmm.
So that's something I focus on is how am I showing up? Am I taking care of myself, taking care of my basics, my exercise, nutrition, my relationships, my whatever mental disciplines? Am I taking care of those things? Because if not, I'm not showing up the way I
Yeah.
need to be for my family or the company.
You said something about you can't hide it from your staff, you can't hide it from your family, but you can't, as a business, you can't hide it from your customers because eventually, how you show up, perception is reality, right? I talk about this all the time. Eventually, how you lead as a company, it will sort of become visible to your employees first and foremost, but then because of that ripple effect, it's ultimately going to be affected on the output of your company, right? So,
Yeah.
so what are you doing outside of just leading the way you need to lead to maintain sort of the image that you want your employees to juxtapose, your brand to juxtapose, how your clients receive you, how your partners receive you? What would you say is sort of the through line around you and SaltWrap that sort of keeps that perception always optimized?
So that's a great question. We have some core values. They're based on my internal values, and I realized you can't. It's tough to separate those. So a lot of those things that I want to show up in Salt Wrap are my personal core values.
They're inseparable. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
I believe
yeah,
they're one and the same.
yeah. I think early on, I had like integrity or whatever. It's like that's not going to do anything. You have to be a little more honest and real with yourself than that. But I think the thing that's unwritten is the authenticity. And this is something that I think, if you talk to somebody on our team and you see our conversations, like we're very authentic with each other. There's not many pulled punches. If there's problems, we say like kill the monsters when they're small. Not that we're calling each other out on everything, but we're pretty open. I've
Mm.
always been pretty open. Like, hey, this is bugging me. I want to check the story in my head because I'm starting to tell myself a story. I want to see if that's what's really going on. I think we have a good culture of that, and I think that shows up with how we communicate to customers, all the way down, from marketing to customer service as well. And that's a huge undervalued thing. Everybody's like, AI, automate everything. We're kind of leaning into the human aspect and the authentic human connection because people still want that for now.
For my listeners, tell me about SaltWrap. What do you stand for? What's the company do? What do you sell? Yada, yada, yada. Give me your 30-second elevator pitch.
Our focus is therapeutic sports nutrition. So we have nutritional supplement formulas that help with healing, with pain relief, with recovery. I sometimes say it's like physical therapy in supplement form. We have to be
Mhm.
careful from an FTC standpoint. It's what we claim, but that's what we're focused on. I think I might have told you this story, but I like to think we're like the athletic trainer of the supplement industry. We're helping people accomplish their performance goals, but we're also looking out for them long term. And I felt like that was a kind of a hole in the marketplace when I started SaltWrap. So yeah, and really underneath that, we're helping people overcome obstacles, get through setbacks. A lot of these people are coming to us in pain. They've been, through surgery, traumatic injuries. So there's a mental aspect. So we're giving them, we're giving them hope, but we're also giving them science and a path to come back stronger from that.
And you said at the outset of the call that part of the reason what you're doing today was sort of your understanding of how your mother lived a more holistically, more functional life, sort of trying to get to the root of the problem by developing things, and she had her own concoctions
Yeah.
that she created. So you're still kind of that's the what if you think about this inflection point of what you wanted your company's solution to be, it was sort of based upon that original model.
Yeah, yeah, natural focused therapeutics. And it was really scratching my own itch. Like I wanted to figure out what's wrong with me. Why am I
Yeah.
always breaking? So that led me down the rabbit hole of, why connective tissue, degrades with time. Why do our joints age? What does that mean? Getting to the bottom of that. So that's what led to the book. And then that whole process really clarified and like, okay, I think there's an opportunity here because the joke was everywhere I go, there's someone working out and they're like, that's enough damage for one day, and there's these well-meaning fitness enthusiasts who are just in pain and I'm like, this is not right. So yeah, I think all those things together made me realize this natural focused long-term approach is missing. And I think we can help with supplements specifically.
That's interesting that you said you were the guinea pig. You and I are
Hmm.
very similar in that regard. But it is really important point to draw out. If you're selling something, you should never be putting something out there, agree or disagree, that you yourself wouldn't use, haven't had some sort of experimentation experience with that product. Like, why would I buy from you? It's like, why would I hire a coach that doesn't have a coach themselves, sort of thing, that or at least hasn't used a coach? Do you agree or disagree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely eat my own cooking. And I'm like, I joke, my biggest strength is I'm like the everyman. I don't have some story of like, look at my Herculean physique now and I'm indestructible. Like, I'm still going through, recovery from old injuries. I had surgery last year from something that was, an old injury. And I'm still figuring it out. I have a lot of the same aches and pains that our customers do. And yeah, everything I've made, I use at least, on a regular basis. I use some of them more like medicine. Like, okay, I have a gut issue. Like, I'm going to use our gut product because I know it's going to help me get through something. I either use it daily or I use it for specific conditions that pop up very regularly.
I think I have a gut issue. I'd like to talk to you offline about that. I'd like to try your product if
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, there's some
because
interesting research on this. There's a patented ingredient in our formula. It's super expensive. It used to be prescription only. It's called
hmm
immunolin. So
hmm
yeah, some interesting stuff on it.
Well, you need to back that truck over here and drop off some of that here. So,
I'll do it.
who do you serve? If you had to sort of wave your magic wand, who is your ideal buyer? Who are the people that is like, that's my avatar to the core?
Sure. I mean, this is a little, maybe it sounds pejorative, like middle-aged fitness enthusiasts. So anywhere from 35 to 55 is probably where most of our customers fall. But
Yes. I'm still there.
yeah, it's us. What's cool is we have some really smart customers. Our customers are not like just now walking into the GNC like, what's a supplement? Should I be taking a multivitamin? These are people that have been through it. And they're like former athletes, very active hobbyists. They've probably done the research. So we have to be on our A game. And usually they find us because they've been through a lot of the cheap crap. And they're like, okay, this is not working. This is all, either overpriced or it's just total snake oil BS. And they start looking at our ingredients or hear about us and like, oh, this looks like it's legit. So that's our customer. They're usually in some kind of pain, whether it's nagging aches and pains or they've had some kind of injury and they've tried all like the cheap stuff that's not working. I don't mean just
Mhm.
from a price standpoint, but from an application standpoint. And they found us and they're like, okay, I'm ready to go all in and get to the bottom of this problem.
You said something, your customers are really smart. It's interesting to call out buyers for the most part, today's buyers are actually I don't know if they're smart. They're very well informed. They have a lot of choices that they've been exposed to, with cell phones and internet and how modern media works. Like we're really well informed. I can find out in a matter of seconds what your customer thinks about you from a Google review or from talking to somebody who's used your product or somebody who called your customer service or just picking up the phone and seeing how your people answer the phone if they answer the phone at all. So customers are really more informed. But I like what you said. I suspect, and this is just hypothetical, and I'm speaking for myself because at least I fit your age requirements.
Hmm.
But I've spent a lot of time working on me. I spent a lot of time working on diet and understanding how things affect the body. I would imagine that people who are taking the products that you sell, they are actually very, very well informed, but very intelligent because they've already spent a lot of time figuring stuff out before they even got to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not just that they are like aficionados, that they're super interested in it. Usually it's a combination of they got some kind of condition, or they've got
Hmm.
some issue or pain that they haven't been able to solve. And they've like been to all these doctors and been to therapists, done their own research. And, we've put together some formulas that address things very specifically, specific conditions. And then our content, I think, is amazing. We have a clinical advisory board that helps review and also produce content related to everything from corrective exercise to regenerative medicine. So yeah, I think when people see that we take that very seriously, my goal is to earn their trust with that
Yeah.
content and with our customer service. And it's not easy. I mean, people should be skeptical. So they usually approach us like, "Why do you have this?" Or, "I've heard this. What do you guys think about this?"
Hmm.
So we love that. We love the challenge of it.
First of all, what is the state of the nutritional, functional, holistic, sort of do-it-yourself world in your purview?
I have a more positive spin than you might hear from other people. I'll speak specifically to supplements. The standards from the manufacturing side to retailers to customers have like quadrupled in the last 10 years. I would say 10 years ago, the top selling brands were basically producing products as cheaply as possible and then selling them as expensively as possible. And then you had some direct to consumer companies come in and, um, kind of throw a wrench in things by doing patented ingredients, by going on a low price structure rather than this crazy markup. So anyway, I also think customers are very informed, like you said,
Mhm.
and so they expect testing, third party testing. Usually branded ingredients, ones that have been thoroughly tested, are the most well documented and controlled from a supply chain standpoint. So I actually think, we're in a pretty good place where if you do your research and you find a good brand, they're going to follow all those checkpoints as far as testing for ingredients, testing finished product, and making sure what they say is in there. But yeah, I think it's come a long way even in the last 10 years. So, I mean, on that aspect, I don't want to, unravel into a 30-minute response, but I'll try to focus on supplements. I think the industry is going in a really good direction.
Are the standards that you reference, are these self-imposed standards or is there governmental FDA, but it's more like there are so many quality stories that entrepreneurs, people selling this have been forced to up their game because
Yeah.
certainly, and I'm telling you from experience, I drink an adaptogenic coffee tea and they just found, or there's like a whole brouhaha on it right now where people were getting poorly tested or poorly tasted ingredients that they were buying from Amazon. And apparently there's like multiple knockoffs that they're selling on
Oh yeah.
Amazon.
Mud
So
butter or something.
I don't even, Rise is the company.
Yeah, yeah.
So the Rise is a really phenomenal product, but apparently there's like an uproar going on where they were buying false Rise products. So there isn't actually an industry standard. These are more self-imposed standards. Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
I
Yeah.
be I believe so. I mean, sure there are, but there's a lot of companies not following that. It's
Hmm.
it's not hard to game the system, frankly.
Hmm. Hmm.
As a consumer, if you're listening to this, you just have to find a brand that you trust because there's ways to, you can do protein spiking and add amino acids and fudge this and round up and there's a lot of fudgery that can happen. But yeah, it's like demanded by the consumer. So if you're doing those things, you're not playing the long game. You might be able to have some, crazy YouTube ad and have an ad campaign that works for a little bit, but you're not going to have customer loyalty. I can't say that it's the FTC or FDA that's made this happen. I think it's from the consumers. They've demanded quality and transparency. Transparency is a big one.
In terms of your product, your ideal customer, and what you're doing and the solution that you're providing, what makes your company, your brand, your products uniquely qualified over someone else's, all things being equal?
Looking at the specific use case, I'll talk about our collagen, for example, because that's a huge category. Like everybody's got their own collagen brand now. For years, I was a big skeptic. I wrote an article about how I thought collagen was a scam because it's It's like, oh, it helps with skin and hair and teeth and nails and gut and immune. It's like, what? What kind of miracle, substance does all this? But there are specific collagen peptides that have been studied and proven to support connective tissue metabolism. So like this company in it's called Gelita. They're a German company. They make these peptides specifically for tendons, ligaments, and cartilage. So you can actually target and elicit a response from those tendon, ligament, cartilage structures by taking this. So it's very like sniper focused. Like our collagen is specifically for joint health, repair, and recovery. And the studies show like when you take this with physical therapy, it improves injury outcomes. So that's a very narrow focused product. Whereas if you want like, a more illustrious beard, maybe take another product. Or if you just want more like general collagen support, there's more, maybe economical generic brands out there, but ours are very laser focused on the musculoskeletal health. And that's true across every product.
Is there an adverse point from taking too many supplements so that it affects your body, in the case of collagen, for example, that it affects your body's natural production of it and your body just stops producing? I don't even know if that's a thing, but I've read stories specifically about collagen that you actually should not take collagen because it tells your body to stop producing it because you're flooding it with sort of your own synthetic version of it, if you will.
I don't think so. I mean, even in cases like something like melatonin, might temporarily suppress your own melatonin production, but our bodies are pretty resilient when it comes to that. Same with like people are worried about creatine. Unless you're getting into hormones, I think you're fine. Collagen, actually, the main benefit, I would say like 80% of the therapeutic benefit from taking collagen has nothing to do with the amino acids you're absorbing. It's the cell signaling process.
Mhm.
So when your body absorbs these peptides intact, which a small percentage get absorbed intact through your gut, it basically tells your body, hey, there's broken down tendon structures. Let's upregulate biosynthesis in that matching peptide profile. So your
Mhm.
body's basically like, oh, there's tendon things floating around. Let's make more of that. It's kind of a dumb way to explain it, but that's how it works. There is some benefit of just having more bricks to build from, but most of it actually is the cell signaling that happens when you take collagen. It upregulates your own collagen production.
In terms of men who are aging and sort of quality of life and testosterone and all those things, do you have a specific supplement regimen that you would recommend in the space of helping men age more gracefully and still being able to keep their vigor and their manhood, I guess, if you will?
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
I
not
actually
speaking from experience, people. I'm
yeah,
just
I
asking,
have a
okay?
friend.
I have a
It's
friend. He's over
it's
here
not for
talking to me
me.
right
It's
now.
a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I formulated a supplement for that specific category. So I spent like 6 months researching and formulating this. We don't have anything specifically in salt wrap for that, but we probably will one day. Yeah, there's a lot you can do. And I'm not anti HRT. I think for guys and actually girls, you've probably seen the like black labels came off of a lot of the hormone
Hmm.
replacement drugs for
Hmm.
women. It's a big headline news story. But anyway, for men, there's a lot you can do just with your body first. So I think people should earn that. Like if you're middle aged and you're thinking about doing testosterone replacement, it can be amazing, but earn it, by, body composition's a big thing. Your diet, getting enough protein, getting actually some saturated fat can help. From a supplement standpoint, I'll speak about the deficits that will kill your testosterone. They're easy to fix, like vitamin D.
Hmm.
Your body needs vitamin D.
Hmm.
Boron is another mineral where the studies are mixed on this. If you take it and your boron levels are normal, it's not going to do much for you. But if you're deficient, it can make a big difference. There's also some evidence that shows boron binds with something called sex hormone binding globulin, which suppresses testosterone production. So like if you just wanted a quick way to ensure you're covering your bases naturally without like any kind of artificial hormone boost, you know, get blood tests, but vitamin D, take vitamin K with it. Think about taking boron, and even things like we have an organ supplement. It's made from like liver and kidney and heart. Like that, there's some studies that show that will help trigger that. And then there's another level of like natural supplements, like tribulus that might boost luteinizing hormone. But even if you don't go that route, like, if you can lean up a little bit, eat your protein, get some animal fats, get rid of the artificial stuff as much as possible, DK and boron, I think that's a great start.
What are you ruminating on? What's a sort of a piece or an inflection point in your life or in your business? You're sort of kind of ruminating. You're at a sort of like a stopgap, or there's a different directional shift. Anything that you'd like to kind of like talk through together?
We're in the low eight figures now as a company. And we have a fantastic team. But we're at the point now where things are going well, but you're starting to find some of those typical sticking points. Vern Harnish from Scaling Up has these, like, if you look at his graph of like scaling up dips, it shows there's like a dip before you get to a million, and then a dip around 5 million, and a dip around 10 million. And it's like clockwork. So we're running into some of those. And it's just a lot of it's just natural growing pains. Like, oh, we can't just do everything off the cuff. We need some processes. Or, oh, we actually need some actual managers to manage things because we're running around like heads with our chickens cut off. I think for us and for me, the thing I'm toiling with is making sure that whatever direction we go, uh, that it's the right direction and we stay true to who we are. Because I see us scaling pretty fast in the next few years, and I take it very seriously because I don't want to lose our culture. I don't want to lose my lifestyle in terms of freedom. I don't want to be a workaholic. So yeah, that's what I'm toiling with is how do we do that? What do we execute on? What do we say no to? How do we make sure that every new person we add, brings up the average quality of employee, which is tough, really tough. So that's I'm at an inflection point as I look at 2026. Like, what are we investing in?
What are you investing in so that you can optimize the growth levers that are pushing you towards the next milestone you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, and some of it's just like good old-fashioned constraint theory and like scaling theory, like, what's the one thing we could do that could 10x our revenue? Those kind of questions. And then, it's like, how do you do that without burning out? I've been part of 3 companies that just ran out of money. They were technically profitable, but ran out of money. So, I'm conservative there. But yeah, I guess to answer your question, that's something I'm toiling with is how do we do this well? I don't want to just be incrementally growing or flat forever. I think we have bigger impact we need to make. But how do you do that without losing control, losing your identity?
So can I give some feedback from just
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
heard you say? So
please.
I'm not trying to solve the problem here, but I do have some insights on that. And there's two things that really popped to mind, and there's probably many things that we could do to have a discussion around this, but I don't want to labor the clock. One thing in particular, the first thing I heard you say, and we've talked about it a couple of times, is sort of the culture of things. And I'm actually working with a company out of the UK right now where she spent 15 years. I don't know if you and I talked about this before, but she spent 15 years as running a really successful 8-figure recruiting business in the UK where she was exclusively responsible for finding talent for companies. But over the 15 years, she started to notice patterns in every company, no matter how successful or how large or how small they were. And one of the things that's happening in today's modern workplace, and you're probably aware of this, is there's a lot of turnover, or maybe you're not,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of turnover because there's so many opportunities, and for whatever reason, the rising culture of how the agronomy of business now is sort of like what's bigger and better out there. And I think there's a lot of psychology to break that down, where we've grown up with instant gratification on so many levels. So it's like what is bigger and better out there? There's got to be something. But one of the things that we're working with now with her, and I would love to put the two of you in touch with each other if this resonates,
Yeah.
is she's now shifting her entire business model, and this is why we're working together, on not hiring the right people, but shifting the culture, not only in the new people you hire, but the existing culture, starting with the top, moving down and meeting in the middle. And one of the things that we're developing right now is these models, these workshops, these integrated experiential concepts where she will go in and work with a company to sort of make sure that the culture is right sized. And in some cases, that doesn't mean adding more offers or adding all these new different things. It means making sure that the people are ideal for their position, working in the right capacity, working for the right person, managing the right type of person's attitude, etc. And so as you scale, one of the things that I have seen in corporations is that people generally leave because you either get too big or you've lost focus for what you originally started. So my second piece that I would suggest, and again, I'm not giving you advice, you clearly know what you're
Please
doing.
do.
I would say the core risk for people really trying to scale past 8 figures is that a lot of companies respond to the friction, these inflection points, by adding more offers or expanding channels or hiring faster or marketing harder or chasing adjacent opportunities that may or may not be outside their core zone of genius,
Yeah.
instead of doubling down on the things that have already worked and how can we optimize that and expand that rather than just adding all these new channels in. So again, if I were charged with
It's
that,
good advice.
those are two things that I would look at right away. What's working really, really well, and how can we optimize that and make that more efficient for the customer's experience? And secondly, is the culture optimized for what we are ultimately value aligned with? Like where are we now? Where do I want to go? What are the gaps in between? And are we culturally aligned in that space? And that's something that one of my clients could, if you want to have that conversation, would love to chat with you about. So those are the two things. And I think if you look at a lot of companies that have failed in that expansion rate, they tried really hard to diversify and do all these different things, and they just got outside of their zone of genius.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like the Silicon Valley story of like there's a genius that scales it up. They don't even think about culture. It's all behind them and they're taking a rocket ship to the moon. And then you end up with a team full of resentful people and
Yeah.
there's infighting and
Yeah. At the inflection, I would suggest that the question isn't how do we move past this friction and grow? I would say that the question is how do we stay true as we expand?
yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah, and I've learned you can't like SOP everything to death. Like you can't move beyond where we are to the next phase by SOPing everything. Like I joked that 2024 was the year of the SOP, and it just got to the point where it's like this, for me personally, it wasn't working. It's not scalable, first of all, but second of all, not everything can be systemized. You have to have people that not think like me, but think from the same value standpoint. Like
Hmm.
this is what we're about. Like so that's what I'm trying to lean into now is, when we have decisions like, do we do the thing that makes us money or do we do the thing that's right for the customer? Because sometimes there's conflict there and how you answer that question is really important. So I'm very thoughtful because it's like you can't document that, you just have to have people that can walk that line and be like, okay, we need to grow, but we don't want to start optimizing and, become a porn site because that gets clicks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Seth Godin has this joke is like the problem with conversion rate optimization is you end up being a porn site,
Yeah.
and like, I mean, that's graphic and vulgar, but a more real world example is like, hey, when we do all caps in our email subject lines, people open it more.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you could do that. And then you're just screaming at everybody. Is that a good long-term strategy?
Yeah, it's a precarious line to manage for sure. Are you receiving feedback from customers on a regular basis?
Yes. Yeah, we take that very seriously.
That's a great way to look at your data and understand your expansion points and understand your perception of, we talked at the beginning, perception is reality. I think a lot of businesses always sort of focus on what am I bringing to the table? What value do I offer? What solution am I in? How do I see the world? But if you're selling something to customers that are ultimately responsible for your very livelihood, it's really important to step into their shoes for a minute and sort of see what is their perception about your brand, because
Yeah.
that'll tell you a lot about what you're doing right or wrong.
It's the only thing that matters. And this takes us back to like the first 5 minutes of the first conversation we ever had of, how competitive things are. And I talked about how it's easy to start thinking like hierarchically, like, oh man, there's all these big companies out there, or there's this influencer therapist. What do I have to add to the conversation? But there's always people local in your world, geographically thinking, that you can help. Jeff Bezos built Amazon by just focusing on solving problems for customers. At a certain point, they branched out of that. But he's famous for saying customers are always wonderfully dissatisfied, and if you listen, you solve their problems. Like that's all it is. And we have that base of people now. We can listen to them, and that's how we innovate.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dichotomy. You don't always have to expand in order to grow. Like there are different ways to grow and expand and evolve that can still add value and volume and revenue to your company by focusing on the core things. I think sometimes, and I'm speaking from somebody I know in particular, we had a very successful operation going on in San Francisco, doing really well, software company, but for some reason he felt like he needed to open up another center that was like 2,000 miles away. And one of the things that really happened really quickly is because he was never there and the core people that were in his business were never there, there was no oversight and he didn't do a good job culturally hiring the
Mm,
right people.
yep.
Operationally, it was operating from a different scale and different level than his company in San Francisco. And he ended up having to close down the Texas operation because it just became a nightmare overnight. And one of the things when we sort of really started breaking into it is like it really was growing too fast for what they were truly capable of doing, and then hiring and making sure that the culture of the company stayed completely values aligned with what he believed. And because there was no oversight, I mean, the ship just went wrong fast. So anyway, good conversation. Thank you for humoring me in that. I appreciate that. All right, we're coming towards the end of our show, and the last part of my show is the hot seat. What would your children describe you as in 2 or 3 words?
Fun dad.
What word would you say currently describes the season you are in as a man?
Pivotal came to mind.
I like that. That's a good word. What is something really small that's really bringing you a great amount of joy right now?
Oh, morning quiet time, cup of
Mm.
coffee before anybody else is up.
What do you think makes you feel the most alive these days?
Just being with my kids, just playing and being goofy with my kids.
What is one aspect or one element or something about your life right now that you are unexpectedly excited about?
I'm thinking of working from home,
Are you?
having the freedom to work remotely.
Uh,
Yeah.
and you're in Florida, is that right? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What are you proud of as you? Not necessarily an achievement, but you, like the becoming of who you are right now.
I'm proud of the fact that I just have always focused on expansion. Sometimes I picture like my chubby little self kid looking in the mirror, not liking what I saw, and I tell that kid like keep going.
Mm.
So just the fact that I was able to keep pushing, expanding, growing up a shy kind of like chubby little kid with buck teeth. Like there was a moment in my life where I'm like, man, I don't know how this is going to turn out.
What part of Scott has grown the most this past year?
Probably my awareness as a leader of a company and
Mhm.
taking that seriously rather than just trying to drive everything as an operator.
What do you think your work does, your products, your company, your people? What does it make easier for other people?
Overcoming the next hardship. I think we're helping people build resilience at the
Mm,
core.
mm. You walk into a room full of people, you deliver a speech, a keynote, something that's in your source of genius. You walk out. What's the energy that you want to bring into the room, and what do you want them to say about you?
I would just want them to believe that I showed up authentically and spoke as myself and it wasn't some, canned pitch. And I would want them to think about their impact on the rest of the world and show up more present. But I think, if someone described me as being authentic, that would be the best compliment.
Is there anything in your life right now that you are learning to let go of?
Overthinking. Yeah, I'm in a big strategizing, season, and it's tough not to spiral on that. So I'm trying to focus one day at a time. Like I read this, I won't tell you the title of the book because it's sad, but there's a quote, our main business is not to see what lies dimly at a distance, but to do what lies clearly at hand. So I'm
Mm,
trying to live in day tight compartments because I have a tendency to try to plan the whole world and then forget like to do the necessary stuff
yeah.
that needs to happen today.
Last question. The mothership is here to receive you. You have to give the planet one Scott Hogan gift. What are you giving us?
Book built from broken will be in stores nationwide, John.
That doesn't look like
Um,
that. That looked like a thesaurus.
It is. It's like it's a reference text.
Oh wow, that's
Um,
cool.
what gift? I don't know. I would just, Gabby Reese said this on one podcast, and she was like, "Just go first." And I think that's worth repeating. I don't need my own thoughts here. Like, if you're gonna walk through a door, hold the door for somebody, smile at somebody, go first.
Mhm.
I think that's a good gift.
I was reading a story, speaking of holding the door for somebody, that as a man and a woman walking in the door, that we're not actually supposed to hold the door for the women. We're supposed to walk in before them to make sure that it's safe, and then we let them in.
Yeah,
Interesting take, isn't
take
it?
out the threats.
Yeah, no, I just thought that was interesting. Like it's sort of like it got somehow swapped around. But anyway, I like holding the door for people. Scott, this was a cool conversation, man. I really appreciate you showing up and your brutal authenticity and honesty.
Thank
And
you.
any closing notes for before we jump off?
No, no. I appreciate the conversation. I did I tried to wedge a pitch for my book in. It'll be in stores nationwide January 20th. So if you're interested, you can go to bfb-book.com, bfbbook.com, and we have some bonuses if you want to pre-order it.
And where can people find you?
You can go to scotthogan.com. It'll redirect to our company website, but scotthogan.com, it'll tell you about me and some of the products I recommend.
All right then. All right, Scott, I appreciate you being here, man. Thanks for the
Yeah,
time.
good chatting as always.
Yeah. Before I wrap up this episode, I want to zoom out for a moment because conversations like the one I just had with Scott are the entire point of the Brand Lab. And what we talked about today, what we explored isn't just about business. It wasn't just leadership. It was really about being human and a father and how you show up and about identity and alignment and the stories that we live inside of and the ones that we're brave enough to sort of rewrite when we find that something isn't working out. So if something in this conversation stirred you, challenged you, or held up a mirror, I do not think that that is accidental, my friend. I believe that's the work that you are being called to do. And if you're sitting there thinking, yeah, man, I need some clarity, I need some alignment, I need to stop circling the same patterns, all those things that Deevo talks about, there are a few ways to go deeper with us at the brand laboratory or at my company, the brand Storyteller. You can start with the brand diagnostic, which you can find on my website. It's a very cool, scientific, data-based, clear-eyed look at what's actually working in your business, what's not, and why. And it gives you some sort of real, not hypothetical, real things to really point to. And if you're ready to move even faster than a diagnostic, I do offer my brand clarity accelerator. It is a focused 2 or 3 day sprint to help you get unstuck and aligned. And if you want to go deeper, deeper down the rabbit hole with me, talk about your work and your identity and your story and your purpose and your embodiment and how all of that shows up in your business and your life, you can talk to me about Becoming You Blueprint. And for those moments when you just need a mirror or a perspective and something real time and fast, I do offer 1-hour brand therapy consultations. You'll find that all of that on thebrandstoryteller.com. And if you're listening, I'd love to be part of this conversation. I'm always open to any guests that have thoughtful insights to come on the lab and share their zone of genius. I'm looking for founders, I'm looking for creatives, leaders, thinkers who are doing the inner work on themselves, not just talking about their highlight reel on social media. And finally, if you want a weekly dose of philosophy and insight and identity and the occasional irreverent truth bomb that I'm known to drop, please subscribe to my newsletter, Becoming You. You can find that on LinkedIn. Thanks for being here. I know you have choices when it comes to podcasts. Glad that you joined us for that last hour. We did that in 56 minutes. Bravo to me. Until next time, stay curious, stay honest, and keep becoming. Thanks for tuning in to the Branding Laboratory. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Connect with us on social media for more branding tips and insights. And remember, your story matters. Until next time, keep building and sharing your unique brand story. I'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in to the Branding Laboratory. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Connect with us on social media for more branding tips and insights. And remember, your story matters. Until next time, keep building and sharing your unique brand story. I'll see you soon.